the number one thing for me, as a person who wanted to be a broadcaster, he was a role model for me. He talked on SportsCenter like me and my friends talk. He did it his way and was great at it. So for me, as a colleague, and before we became a colleague, I'm not ashamed to say that Stu, and he won't even know this, he was a role model for me and hundreds of other African-American journalists / athletes now who want to be legitimate and want people to take what we say seriously, just like him, and realizing that there never will be another Stu. There is no next man up at ESPN. There'll never be another Stu Scott.
That was Chris Carter talking about Stuart Scott, who passed away yesterday at the age of 49, and all the things that I read, a couple really jumped out at me, and one of the things was from Rich Eisen, now at the NFL Network. He was there when Stu began his career at ESPN, and they paired the two of them together, and boy, it was magic right from the start. And Rich is nice enough to join us now. Rich, I know this is not easy for you, and Stu's loss is not easy for you, but give me some of your memories of Stuart and when you two started together.
How are you, Michael? Happy New Year to you, by the way.
Same to you, my friend.
You bet. I appreciated your text before the new year. You know what, man? It's just nothing but fond memories of working with Stuart and getting to know him and being privy to just his love of life and sitting next to him, as I was fortunate to do for 7 years, was a journey. It really was. And, how he is being praised is just, you played that soundbite of what Chris Carter had to say. When Stuart was doing his thing, when he was broadcasting in his manner, when I was doing it with him in '96, it really wasn't appreciated by a lot of people. Certainly there was a large cross-section of viewers who thought that he wasn't talking to them, that he was being exclusionary with his repertoire by bringing hip-hop, or as Dion said on our post-game show last night on NFL Game Day Final, bringing the barbershop to SportsCenter. There's a large group of people who are regular viewers of SportsCenter who felt that they were being excluded by his commentary. And he never wavered. Never once did he just water it down or take his foot off the gas pedal. He kept on keeping on. And now we're praising him for being groundbreaking and visionary. And he deserves that. He deserves every last bit of praise that's being heaped upon him. And I just, wish, as many people do after someone's passed away, that he had heard it more often when he was going through it. And I was sitting next to him the entire time and watching him grow and watching, through our broadcasts together, just growing with him. And that was a period of my life, as you know, Michael, when I met my wife and, was going through courtship with her, and Stuart was right there in between us the entire time because she worked at ESPN. And, it was just a really great time in my life in which I was going through formative years, not only as a broadcaster, but as a person in life, meeting somebody, getting settled down, getting married. And it's just brought up all those emotions yesterday, knowing that he's gone. I always thought one day I'd go back to SportsCenter and do another show with him, Mm-hmm. He's a 50-year-old man or a 60-year-old man for a throwback SportsCenter. And, I can't believe he's gone. I cannot believe he's no longer with us.
You have a style. He had a style. Is that by design, I want to develop a style, or is it just a case of I'm just going to be myself?
Well, here's the thing. The most successful people in this business are not putting on a shtick. They're being themselves. I'll never forget the first day I walked into SportsCenter. And I remember this plain as day. Berman was doing SportsCenter twice or three times a year at the time. This is in '96. I walked in as a 26-year-old, fresh off the mean streets of Redding, California, KRCR television, and market size 130 or whatever it was. or maybe he still is. And Berman was doing Sports Center, and he comes walking in, and the guy who I grew up watching, the guy who I knew as a viewer, was the guy who walked into the meeting room. It was him. And it struck me right then and there as to why he's so successful. And Stuart was the same way. I mean, you know, so many of the tweets that I've been receiving or texts from friends or emails that I've been receiving that I honestly can't keep up with. And that many of them start where they essentially are saying along the lines of, I wish I knew him, or I didn't really know him. And my answer to everyone is, you did, because that's the guy. The guy you saw on television was the guy who he was. There was no light switch. And trust me, it didn't work the other way. He never was turned off either. He was always on. That was him. He was always that guy. And that's the way he was with life, too. He would tell people, go get married, make babies, you know, do it. Become a family person. Be a dad, be a mom, go. You know, that's the way he would always tell people. And that's, you know, comes from who he is.
Now, Rich, we had Steve Levy on earlier, and Steve said just being around him, he was a rock star off the air. He was bigger than some of the athletes. The athletes wanted to take pictures with him. Now, you were there during the beginning, the formative years. Did you sense that as well? Did you experience that?
I will tell you this story, Michael. Last time the NBA All-Star Game was in Madison Square Garden. It's coming around again in a few weeks. Last time, if you remember, that was a time when, like, Kobe waved Karl Malone off the blocks. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Then there was a big to-do because Kobe just was clearing out Karl Malone, who you didn't know at the time was going to be his future teammate. But at any rate, Stuart and I did an 11 o'clock Sports Center on a Saturday night and got a car to take us down to Times Square, where there was going to be a party at the All-Star Cafe, the now defunct All-Star Cafe. Remember that on Times Square?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we pull up in the car, and, you know, we got down. It was like 1:45 in the morning. And there's a huge amount of people coming out of the All-Star Cafe. And I'm like, oh, looks like the party's broken up. Stuart goes, this is the All-Star Game in New York. There's got to be an after party. I'm like, well, how do we know about it? He goes, I don't know. He got out of the car, found the first cop he could find, who recognized him, by the way, and said, where's the party? Do you know where the party might be going next? Who then asked, the cop knew somebody who was working inside the building and found out for Stuart where the next spot was. And he named some spot in a neighborhood, you know, a few blocks south of the Lincoln Tunnel. Me growing up in Staten Island, I'd never set foot in that part of Manhattan before in my life. So we start walking the few avenues over and the few blocks down. And as we are walking closer and closer to the spot, I am the only white guy I'm seeing on the street. And Stuart is walking through like Moses in the Red Sea, and Elvis is entering the building. One after another, the Pied Piper. We are now surrounded by dozens of people, seriously, wanting a piece of Stuart. And I'll never forget somebody running up to him and saying, Stuart Scott, you are my idol. I love you. You're incredible. And then looks at me and goes, oh, my God, the white guy, too. The white guy.
The white guy, too.
You know, and I just laughed so hard. And, you know, that's part of being around Stuart that I also want to make mention, is certainly to bring it full circle in a way, is that he was broadcasting to a very large group of people. And, you know, as a white person, you might not know what he was saying because they were pop culture references that weren't up your alley. And sometimes I would look at him in a commercial break and say, what was that? And he would tell me it's from this song, this album or whatever. And then another time he would look at me in the commercial break and go, what was that? And I said, that's a Seinfeld reference. And he goes, oh, man, brothers don't watch Seinfeld. And the two of us would sit across from each other and just laugh. And I don't know who in management decided to put us together, but it worked. And I'm, proud to be the white guy.